So I heard you're having some trouble with pike formations, huh? Well, that can be solved. You better pay up first, though.
It's the motherfucking Eagle Double G.
Who doesn't like big-ass swords? I mean, maybe you're one of those fancy French poofs who prefer the small sword, but sometimes that just won't do. Sometimes you need the overkill of a greatsword. This is the Albion Maximilian. You haven't seen that before, even though I've had it for a couple of months now, and I have not tested this particular one yet, nor will I, and I'll tell you why toward the end of the video. There was, however, some testing done with the Maximilian, because Julian Schütze from Blunt Iron Burnaby has one, and he brought it with him on a visit to Blunt Iron Victoria. So we did some cutting with that quite a few months ago, probably half a year ago. This thing is beastly, used by German mercenaries in the 15th and 16th century, also known as Landsknecht, which would be a servant of the country. And these guys were pretty tough. They were well known to be prone to drinking, gambling, debauchery. It's essentially the stereotypical mercenary, with all his charm and temperament and flamboyant clothing and brutality. All of that. So, yeah, whether you call it a greatsword or a Zweihänder, which is the German word for two-hander, basically. Two-handed sword. That's what this is. Let's see, can I just about fit it in the frame? Yeah, more or less. It's kind of hard to see from here, but just about fits. If I set it down in front of me, reaches to about the beard. And it's not as heavy as you may think. This is actually only a bit over 2 kilograms. I can hold it in one hand. Would I want to use it in one hand? No, definitely not. I mean, could you, if you absolutely had to, without ending up like in Dark Souls, where you don't have enough strength and try to use a greatsword and you just kind of drop it and then hoist it back up, that sort of thing? No, it wouldn't be that big of a deal, especially if you were a pretty tall, muscular dude. Yeah, you could absolutely use this with one hand if you wanted to, but I mean, what's the point? I don't know why people so often ask this. Can you use a greatsword with one hand? I mean, even if you can, should you? Would you? Why, though? But it does serve to illustrate the point that a sword this size is nowhere near as heavy as you may think, or as movies and video games may have led you to believe. It's really not that bad. And it's very lively in the hand. You know, the 2.3 kilograms distributed over this entire length, it's not that hard to handle, really. Alright, so on the blade you've got a double fuller that runs a bit more than half the length of the blade. The blade overall is lenticular in cross-section, very wide, as you can tell, and again, for this size, pretty thin. It's nowhere near the bulky paddles that you so often see in games. And this cuts very well. You know, the wider and thinner a blade is, while retaining enough rigidity, the better it cuts. It's also quite pretty to look at. You've got the guard here with twisted ends and decorative grooves, very well shaped overall. Albion, of course, is well known for high quality fit and finish. Now, speaking of the fit, there is not much of a gap there. The guard is very tightly fitted, and it does not rely on compression of the grip to stay in place. The guard and the pommel are fixed separately and should not come loose. easily, or at all really. Pommel is twisted style here, which looks really nice. The hot peen tang on top actually adds a decorative touch to it as well. It fits quite nicely with the twisted sphere. And then probably the highlight of the sword, aside from the blade and its overall size, is the grip. It's got quite a complex shape to it. So you see in the center there is a raised ridge that then tapers off to the sides, and the sides are then flattened on the very edge, and everything is beveled to give it a nice smooth transition. And you have several risers. You have 2 on top, 2 in the center, and 1 at the bottom. And this is all done with Albion's typical leather wrap, which is very tight. You can see the seam, but you can actually not feel it. Like if I try to get my fingernail under the seam, I can't. It just kind of skips right over. So this is very, very thoroughly done and all perfectly blended together. This should last really indefinitely. I don't foresee any damage to this handle wrap. And this one, by the way, the green is a special request. That's not the color they offer by default. I ordered through Kult of Athena, but I was still able to add that request for the dark green. It's, I think it was an extra $10 for a custom color, which, you know, considering the price of the sword, is essentially nothing. And I really like how this grip feels. It perfectly allows you to feel edge alignment, and it's extremely secure in the hand. The taper is also quite nice. You can hold it in a number of positions. You could also grasp the pommel if you wanted to, but it's really not necessary with a handle this long. There's plenty of grip space, and it just feels fantastic in the hand. Now this would require different techniques than a longsword generally. However, a number of cuts that you can do with a longsword, you could do with this as well, but because of the length, you have to adjust a little bit. This is the kind of sword that you would use with wider sweeping strokes, and particularly flowing cuts that, you know, go from one cut to the other, so you keep moving it and basically keep using the momentum. Because if you have to stop this abruptly, it's a lot harder than with a longsword. Although, for a greatsword or Zweihänder, this is fairly light. So you can absolutely throw a cut and stop it without too much trouble. So it's quite versatile in that way. And it's kind of hard to convey just how nicely this handles. I mean, you can certainly feel the heft, but it's so well balanced. And overall, when you pick this up, it's kind of mind-blowing. Like if you look at this from afar, you may have certain expectations about how it feels, and you pick it up and you're like, well, damn. That's really it. In other words, the Albion experience for the most part. That's what I've said about every sword, pretty much, from Albion. The edge that it came with, in my opinion, is just right. It does have some bite on a sword of this size that would hack into bone, or wooden pike handles, and clash with armor, etc. You don't want a super fine, thin slicing edge. And I think they did it just right. This is a nice, sharp edge. You can feel immediately that this is sharp. This will cut tatami. And yeah, it's exactly where you want it to be, basically. This is one of those reviews where I struggle to find any negative points.
Oh,
Yep.
that was effortless.
As kind of a balance. Do not make it seem too one-sided, but this is going to be one-sided. This is one of those things where literally the only downside that I can give you, which to be fair is a big one, is the price. This is a lot of money to spend on a sword. That's the main problem here. Is it justified for the quality that you're getting? Absolutely. In my opinion, yes. This is a very high quality sword. It is going to have its price, and I have no problem with that. But it still makes it not very accessible to a lot of people. In fact, I'm going to have to sell it myself before even using it, because I'm going to have to get my wisdom teeth pulled. This is something that I've put off again and again over the years, because even with health insurance, it's quite a bit of money. I kept thinking, well, it's not really that necessary, but I should get it done. So this is the reason that I hinted at in the beginning why I have not tested this one, and I'm not going to, because I'd rather leave it as is, new condition, so I can ask more and more or less get back what I paid for it, maybe a bit less, and that'll cover the cost of the wisdom tooth extraction. Plus, this is quite a large sword, and we're trying to get rid of as much as possible for the big move later this year, which is going to be across the entire country. And there's already quite a bit of stuff to bring along. And a lot of what I have left, the swords and other weapons, a lot of that is gifts, which I don't want to sell. I figured that even though this is not a full review by my usual strict standards, it would still be better to show you and give you my opinion and my own impression. I mean, destructive testing is not something I would do with this anyway, or hard durability testing I don't think necessary anyway. I've done this with the other Albion swords that I have had, never ran into any problems. I wouldn't expect this to be any different, and I can easily recommend it. So I hope you liked this video. Thanks for watching. Check out the link down below. I'll put the eBay listing there for the sword and some other stuff as well. And that's it. So have a good one, folks. Thanks for watching.